All right. Well, welcome everybody to this month's noontime conversation. We're going to be talking with Scott Hansen. And so he has been a volunteer with Nebraska Wildlife Rehab for 10 years now, about.
Yep. Yeah, 10
And
years.
so he has done a lot of things with them, has a lot of great stories and experiences to share. And so he's going to talk to us today about his experience working with wildlife rehab and what he's done, and share some of those experiences, and then talk a little bit about what it's like to volunteer with wildlife rehab, and how to get involved with them. So I'll just go ahead and hand it over to you, Scott.
All right. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate the invitation to speak to this group. I am a master naturalist on top of what I'm here to speak about, but so I can relate to the people that are attending this, I hope, as far as what we appreciate about nature and animals and things like that, and being a volunteer and the value out of that. What I'm going to do, I have a presentation. It's got many slides, but it's mostly photographs that tie into stories. There's several video links. There's a couple that are a little bit longer than others, but I'm going to bounce in between the presentation and some video links that are through Facebook, YouTube, things like that. So I'm going to share screen and then get the presentation started. So thank you for attending. So hopefully this goes well.
Well, he's getting that ready. If anybody has any questions too, they can put them in the chat.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Once I get started here, Matt, if I'll be able to see if someone's raising their hand or posting a question, because I think I'll only be in presentation view or something like that.
Yeah, and we can address all those questions at the end. So if you're thinking of something while he's presenting, you can put it in the chat, and we'll get it at the end.
Okay, tell me, does everybody see my cover slide here for Nebraska Wildlife Rehab?
Yes, looks great.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So when Matt asked me to present, I like to share stories and talk about what we did. It's not necessarily because I like to brag about it, but I think it's just really cool and fun stuff that I like to do. And so I thought a clever title might be catchy, and that's what this is. We're talking about rescuing. The purpose is to rehab, and I don't know why, but people seem to think I'm the guy when it comes to rehab and rescuing. So I'm going to tell you how to become a hero, I guess, like me. And these are all tales from the field. Catch the fun throw of tails there. Okay, this cover slide has a couple of pictures on it that really don't have anything to do with what I'm about to talk about, but they're really neat pictures from a partner of ours, Mr. Joel Sartori. He's from National Geographic, and he's gone around the world for the last several years creating what's called the photo arc. He wants to capture every single species of animal that exists on the planet to the best of his abilities, and he's upwards in the thousands already. And so these are some animals that are part of our team from a couple of years ago. That white albino porcupine's name is Halsey. She's a permanent resident because she got ran over and got terrible road rash, fractured her jaw and her spine and everything. And everything healed wonderfully except for her jaw. The porcupine species, their teeth have to align so that they can wear down. Otherwise, they get a condition called malocclusion, where their teeth they continuously grow up and down. And if they don't align perfectly, they will eventually grow into the bottom of the jaw or the top of the jaw or both, and prevent that animal from eating and ultimately die. So this Halsey is a permanent resident for the last 5 years roughly. And every 6 months she goes in for a dental clipping to clip those teeth because they can't happen naturally. And then the other photo I picked was our 4 fox kits that Joel photographed. Now, these photographs that he takes are either on a black background or on a white background. So when these fox kits circled the globe in their cuteness, St. Peter's Basilica, this is not a photoshopped image. They really did take Joel's photograph and cast it over St. Peter's Basilica. So this is a worldwide image. of someone from our very own organization and a local. Joel lives in Lincoln, so he's here all the time talking to us about photographs. But I thought my cover slide was going to be kind of cool. I like it. So a little bit about me before we get into the actual stories. I'll brush through this real quick, but just some background on me. I was born in Minneapolis, and I'm a true Minnesotan by heart. I like all the sports teams in Minnesota. I have a little bit of a draw from time to time. All my family has the Minnesota dialect, don't you know? Eh? But I was raised in a small farm in South Dakota for most of my life with my one brother. When I moved to Nebraska about 22 years ago, I did meet my now ex-wife, but I still keep in wonderful touch with the entire family. Three stepkids who have given me some grandkids. Up in the upper right corner, upper left, I guess, is my the 5 grandkids I see most of the time and are closest to me. The 6th one I don't see very often. I came from a background with an interest in this kind of a field. I wanted to be a game fish and parks officer or a wildlife biologist or something. So I did some seasonal work while I went to college in this kind of field. But ultimately and unexpectedly, I've spent 22 years in biomedical research with UNMC and now at Merck Animal Health developing vaccines for animals. So if you take your pet to the vet, the shots they get are the things that I'm helping to develop. Or if a farmer is needing their flock to get vaccinated, their chickens to get vaccinated, those are the sorts of medicines that I help develop. I manage the team that cares for the animals in that science. So why I'm here, I've spent 10 years, as Matt said, with Nebraska Wildlife Rehab, volunteering in various capacities, which will come in a different slide. This is my 5th year with Master Naturalist, and truth be told, full transparency, most of my volunteer time has been with wildlife rehab and not the other things that Master Naturalist can provide. I would love to, I'm just very busy. So I've been a powerlifting coach at Omaha South for the last 5 years. I was kind of coaxed into that through a mutual friend of mine, and we had similar interests and values, and he said, hey, come on by sometime if you want to help us out. And it blossomed into I am now the assistant head coach of the team. Personally, I've been involved with USA Powerlifting for 28 years. I started out as a competitor. I became a coach and eventually evolved into a state referee, and now I'm a national referee. And as a competitor, I have earned my pro card, which means I can go to these meets and earn money. And there's certain meets that only the pro card holders get invited to. Like I've been invited to Russia, Czech Republic, Australia, Korea. I've gone to the Arnold Schwarzenegger meet 3 times now. Some of these photos, you can see the one where I'm posing with the Arnold statue. That's with my world team invitation uniform and my bling from the meets. But I've recently gotten into Spartan races. I've always wanted to do mud runs and those obstacle course races, and I thought, well, Christ, I'm in my 40s now. I don't want to be 60 or 50 and wish I had given it a try. So I'm actually quite addicted to the Spartan races, the Tough Mudders, things like that. And I love them. They're just wonderful. I feel so accomplished training and coming out of them. And I don't come out unscathed. I always come out cut or injured or just road rash all over the place. But they're fun. Love them. Recently, I've acquired the title of alpaca wrangler. My girlfriend, they're pictured in some of these Spartan pictures. She has been volunteering with Heartlands of America, the alpacas of the Heartland, for a few years, and now roped me into it. So now I'm also an alpaca wrangler. I love to travel. Been to 11 countries, 38 states. I love hiking. Anytime we travel, it's always to a place where I plan long days hiking out in the woods and seeing nature. I love concerts and shows. I like plays, symphonies, musicals, rock music. I love any kind of music. I take the grandkids to PJ Masks and what do you call it, the Paw Patrol shows and stuff. So I love doing all that stuff. That's a little bit about me. This photo I think is really cool because it's the first time I ever went to the Arnold Schwarzenegger meet, and the photographer, the media company here, used this photo as their cover photo for the day, for the event. I can't do a presentation like this without talking first after that about the organization itself. Like Matt said, this is Nebraska Wildlife Rehab. It is a nonprofit organization that partners with the Game and Parks and Fish and Wildlife Services, and their mission is generally to rehabilitate native Nebraska wildlife and migratory birds for a return to the wild. So I'm not going to read this word for word, but basically I have a twofold mission. One is to rescue, rehabilitate, and reintroduce to the wild native animals, which means we're not trying to rehab exotics. We don't do anything that's outside of Nebraska's normal kind of population. And we will not release and rehabilitate animals that cannot maintain a normal lifestyle once they're released. So an animal with a broken wing, for example, yeah, you can heal that wing, but it will never be able to fly. It can live, it can thrive in the right conditions, but it cannot probably reproduce. It will not migrate. It will not have its natural life. So that is one of the criteria for determining whether an animal can be rehabilitated and released is, can it live another natural life beyond the injury? So the vision is to create a community in which wildlife and natural habitats are valued and protected, in which people are educated and inspired to become leaders in the environmental conservation and sciences. So we want to teach people, older people, how to care about things and interact and live with nature, but also to help us inspire the next generation of people who are interested, which is how I became interested. My grandparents were great outdoor enthusiasts, and I got to play in the mud, and I got to play in the lakes and the puddles and learn about what lived in them. And that's kind of what inspired me to pursue this stuff as a career, but now I'm doing it just for fun. The values are always, treat things with respect, engage people, be kind to the world is basically the nuts and bolts of the values. But education is also very key with the organization. And the link here, I don't know, Matt, if you're sending this out, I do have a few links here for people that may be interested. Excuse me. This will be the first of my longer videos. Nebraska Wildlife Rehab used to be based strictly out of people's homes. So when it was a small organization, people would take care of animals in their house, and we'd have specialists like raccoon specialists, squirrel specialists, bat specialists, and they would do most of it out of their home. Then they acquired a property in Louisville at Ash Grove cement factory or gravel factory. I can't remember what it's called, but it's Ash Grove in Louisville. They paid a very small lease fee of $10 per year. And for that, they got to use the facility, but they outgrew the facility after a few years. The building itself became unsafe, and it wasn't something that Ash Grove was willing to renovate, so we had to move. And the temporary location prior to these photos you see here was in Turkey Creek, which they still have a facility up in Turkey Creek, which is near Fort Calhoun. It's a property donated to us, and we do most of our outdoor rehab stuff there. But a few years ago, they started a capital campaign to create an actual wildlife facility, state of the art, millions of dollars to build. And what came out of it was the Baldwin Wildlife Center and Hubbard Family Wildlife Hospital. So those two families donated so much to create this facility. And this, I'll click on this link in a sec to show you how this came about. But Nebraska is going to be hosting the 2024 National Symposium in town here. And it's because most people within this wildlife rehab business now consider this state of the art and one of the best in the entire country. So we're very proud of that. And I'm going to click this video to show you what we work with now. And let me know if you can't hear the sound, because that's what I'm worried about with this plate. This thing is the sound. Oops.
Yeah, we can't hear it now.
Hold on, guys. I'm gonna try. Oops, I gotta try that again. What happened? Were you guys hearing it at all?
No.
Not at all.
No, video played, but no sound.
How do we fix that? Because that's kind of important. I have lots of videos. Any thoughts, Matt?
Usually we've had it where you just play it and it'll work, but I'm looking at settings real quick.
Let me see if let's see if this one works.
Can you hear it when you play it?
I can hear it when I play it.
Yeah, it's not coming through on our side.
Yeah.
Bummer, because that's kind of, I got some good stuff here.
The other
gotta be
video
able-
you showed earlier did work.
The one that you and I did as a test
Mhm.
one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's see, those were through Chrome. So I wonder if I do this same video through Chrome.
This is Dave, head of marketing at a ketchup company, about to use Grammarly to head. Nebraska
Now we can
Wildlife
hear
Rehab is an organization with a twofold mission.
Okay, can you
We're
see
here
it
to
well
rescue,
enough?
rehabilitate, and return to
Yeah.
the wild
Yep.
wildlife, and to educate people
Okay, we'll
about
stay on this for a
Nebraska's
minute.
wildlife and wild spaces. 20 years ago, Nebraska Wildlife Rehab regularly received between 1,000 and 2,000 animals annually. Now we see over 7,000 animals come through our doors every year. And with the opening of the new Baldwin Wildlife Center, we expect those numbers to increase over the next decade. Nebraska Wildlife Rehab provides education in the after-school hours to 8 middle schools and 2 elementary schools in partnership with Collective for Youth. Each year, we reach between 600 and 1,000 students through those programs. Nebraska Wildlife Rehab also has its very own high school science academy. Each year, more than 40 students participate in classroom and fieldwork that helps them explore careers in conservation and learn more about Nebraska's native wildlife and ecosystems. A decade ago, Nebraska Wildlife Rehab started its university internship program by accepting 4 interns for the summer to help rehabilitate wildlife and educate the public about wild animals. Now we offer 24 summer internships to university students, and we're looking forward to expanding that program even further. With the opening of the new Hubbard Family Wildlife Hospital here in Omaha, we're hoping that in the near future, we can also offer internships and externships to veterinary students and veterinary technician students as well. Traditionally, Nebraska Wildlife Rehab has been very interested in research that benefits Nebraska's native wildlife. With the new Baldwin Wildlife Center and Hubbard Family Wildlife Hospital, we know that our opportunities to participate in research that benefits and learns more about Nebraska's native wildlife will only grow. With the new Hubbard Family Wildlife Hospital, we are able to immediately address the injuries that a wild animal might have, and through proper treatment, improve the possibility that they will get to return to a life in the wild where they belong. Throughout this entire project, we have been so filled with gratitude for all of the donors who have made the Baldwin Wildlife Center and Hubbard Family Wildlife Hospital possible. Without them, none of this could have happened. Your generosity will ensure positive outcomes for the wildlife of Nebraska and all of the students looking to pursue careers in conservation in the future.
Okay, are we back to hearing me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I can't believe we've already been on this for 20 minutes, so I guess I'm gonna have to go faster. So the sources to my stories come from several different angles of volunteering within the organization. I got trained to just help with 4-hour shifts at the Louisville Wildlife Care Center, and that transitioned into helping with in-home bat care, because part of working at Merck Animal Health as a benefit is I'm vaccinated for rabies. So anybody that's vaccinated with rabies, they try to elbow and nudge, hey, you want to take care of some bats? And so I got into the bat raising. I've helped with fundraisers. Humane Society transport is one thing that a lot of people volunteer for because it's very easy. People that pick up wildlife in their yard and don't know what to do with them, bring them to the Humane Society, and twice a day we send somebody to go pick up the wildlife that's been delivered that day. And then a similar job is statewide transport. So we might get a call from somebody in York or in Lincoln or in Grand Island or wherever across the state, and they need to get the critter to Omaha. So the statewide transport does the dirty work of just driving for the 5 minutes of picking up an animal and dropping it off. I've helped with some photography for the purpose of this talk, though. I've become the field rescue guru, I guess. I don't know what they call me, but I'm pretty much the only person they ever call for field rescues. I've helped with some reunifications, some releases, and then I've had a big hand in a lot of their cage building too. Before I move on, the photos here you see the geese. Geese are a great one for reunification jobs, and so are squirrels and raccoons. But this little gosling here in the lower right was picked up by somebody thinking they were doing a great thing and helping to save this animal, which maybe they were, but it doesn't have a family now. So goslings, as long as you can pair them up with a already mated couple that has babies, as long as they're roughly the same age, you can just kind of show them this baby and they'll adopt it right away. So you have to, there's a little trick to it, but geese and ducks, they really take in strays. They adopt. And then these other photos are my first rescue as a field rescuer. So this duck, or this goose rather, on the ice, this is out at Lake Bennington or something, I think it's Bennington, was frozen to the ice. It couldn't get off for some reason. So 20 degrees below zero, I'm getting into an inflatable kayak on an icy lake. And that was my first experience with making sure I'm safe with how I approach this stuff. And the goose did eventually, he freed himself from the ice as he got scared of me and came free, and then swam back and forth across this open water. And it couldn't fly, but it could swim and dive, which was annoying. But as long as you chase them around well enough, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, they get tired of swimming and diving. And sometimes they can make a mistake, and you have to be able to capitalize and be able to anticipate some of the movements. And we did catch that one and bring it into rehab. But that was my first experience. I'm in that kayak, I'm tethered to a rope. I've got layers of clothing on that can easily be removed if I have to, if I fall in. All kinds of safety levels, layers here. But the first thing that we talk about when it comes to rescues and rehabilitations in Omaha is the city lakes, the parks around here. Most of our calls, most of our time goes into dealing with calls from city parks with people out there feeding the ducks and just going for walks and whatnot. The common things we see are fishing line issues, lures stuck to legs and limbs and beaks, angel wing, that's a condition I'll get at the next slide. Lead poisoning is pretty common. Injuries, car impacts. People, teenagers, kids, just obnoxious people being rude to the animals and trying to hurt them. Then we also get calls about nesting birds because people think they're not, they think their birds are making dumb choices and making nests in the wrong place where the birds made a choice, and that's where they've picked. The lakes listed there are the common ones that we see and get calls from. Halleck Park and Lakeside are primary ones, and then all these other ones get a few a year too. Mostly the calls are about Canadian geese, mallards, a few domestics. So with domestics, what happens is, I'll get to this in a later slide, but the domestics are, people go to Tractor Supply Company and they see this tub full of cute little golden balls of sunshine that looks so adorable that their kids would love a baby duck for Easter, a real one. So they get a baby duck. And then a week into it, the kid doesn't want it anymore. The parents realize it's more than they bargained for, so they bring the duck to the city park lake, and its fate is determined at the city park then from there. We see some turtle problems, a lot of broken shells, shorebirds. We don't get a whole lot of shorebird calls, but things like blue herons, Virginia rails, a few plovers and killdeer, things like that. These photographs here, my favorite in this group is this one here, where I'm holding this goose. This goose was called out. We got called out about this goose, and this is, I'm just joking, so I'm just kidding here. I sent it back to the rehab center, and I said, there's nothing wrong with this goose. It's just very tiny. So I thought that was funny. Here, I always take my I don't always, but whenever I can, if I have my grandkids over, I like to take them with to share the experience. They enjoy being around the animals too. The goose here in the upper left, I know you can't see it here, but we chased that one for almost a month. It has a blow darts. There was geese out in this park by Regency that had blow darts in them. And the darts themselves don't cause the animals any immediate problem other than pain probably, but we can't catch these animals because they can still fly. And it's not until they become infected or they affect them some other way that we can finally get to them. And like this middle picture here has fishing line around it. Fishing line problems are a real issue because most of the time you can't catch the duck to help them because they can still fly very well. And unless you can get lucky or if they're already hurt in some other way, a lot of times these things get they get this bad before we can actually get to the animal, because in this case, he probably didn't want to stand up anymore to be able to fly, or he could only hobble on one foot. So sometimes these fishing line problems and these fishing lure problems, we can't even catch them to help them in any way until they're so sore or so infected that they just can't move. Angel wing is a condition. This photograph here shows what it is. What happens is the birds are malnourished or nourished with the wrong things, and their flight feathers become twisted and they grow in a different manner other than naturally. They grow out instead of laying flat with the rest of their feathers. And then they can't fly. They can never, ever fly. It's not a fixable thing. So when this happens, it's an immediate euthanasia case. But we get calls about them saying that this bird's wing is broken, and actually nothing is actually wrong with the wing or the bones in any way, but the feathers are growing wrong. So the problem is it comes from feeding the ducks bread. People love feeding ducks bread because ducks really, really love bread. But to their demise, they shouldn't like bread because it causes angel wing. But here's an example of what you can feed them. They like the seeds, lettuce and peas. But the bread, aside from causing this problems with their development and their wings and feathers, is it pollutes the water. It causes other harm besides just creating angel wing. But ducks and geese love it so much that people just think they're doing a great thing by giving them bread. Given the time, I don't know that we'll watch this video, but rescuing and relocating a prairie dog town is my first actual story here. We can come back to it if we need to, but basically what happened was somebody had purchased land in eastern Nebraska over by York that happened to have the last remaining prairie dog village in eastern Nebraska. Now, the farmer that bought the land did not know that there was a prairie dog village there, and he tilled up the land and planted it for crops. So word of that got out to Audubon of Kansas, and they contacted us, and thus began a nearly 2-month relocation program where we would catch and trap these prairie dogs. I have several pictures and slides after this, but the video is long. So it was a process. It took several weeks, and we'll get into this here. The site was, as you can see here, a big field. They planted beans in this field, 10 miles southwest of York, Nebraska. And we worked day and night well, I was only out there for 3 consecutive weeks, but the total project took a couple of months, and plus then some follow-up afterwards to see that their new location, their new home was good for them. But we dealt with inclement weather, knee-deep mud. You can see in that photograph that there's standing water in the field. That resulted in mud, and we had to walk through this field, miles of walking every single day. We did AM and PM trap setting and trap checking. We didn't leave any traps open during the daytime hours because it's ridiculously hot out there. And then we don't want to leave them open. We don't want to leave traps set at night either, because if they do get trapped, there's predators. They're a little more vulnerable to predators there. But we dealt with bugs, lots of bites from the critters themselves. A lot of walking in that field where we carried all of our gear, traveling back and forth from Omaha to York. We missed a lot of opportunities because a lot of the traps we got just wouldn't trip No matter what we did to try and set them, they just wouldn't trip. So we'd have a trap set and not realize it didn't work until we came back the next day. And then the farmer, of course, didn't really want us there in the first place. His money was on the line for growing his crops. So there was pressure by the farmer to hurry. And he gave us a grace period of, we were allowed to catch and capture for about 4 weekends or something. But these photos of the tornadoes are kind of cool. It stormed a couple times while we were there, and this was cool because we just saw fingers of tornadoes, 7 of them, 7 little fingers of tornadoes in total came down over the course of half an hour, and nothing touched down, but it created quite a eerie atmosphere because we were out there in the wide open in the field trying to chase down prairie dogs. So what we did was we did a GPS survey of the land to plot the holes, which in turn, each hole represented what we assumed was a family of prairie dogs. And we put a little yellow or red flag next to the yellow, red, or white flag next to the hole so we could not miss them when we're walking around. By numbering the holes, they estimated the population was approximately 300 total prairie dogs, but there could have been as many as 400 to 450. Initially, we set a goal of catching 100 of them to relocate and start a new prairie dog village somewhere else. And to do that, after plotting the holes, we baited the holes with just seeds around the outside for several days. I think actually almost a week and a half, 2 weeks. We just put seeds out for them so they got used to put out. And then we placed cages next to the hole that were not set so they would get used to the presence of the cage being there with free food. And then after a couple of weeks of that, then we would bait and set the traps in the morning and PM. So we would go early in the morning and set the traps with fresh bait, come back a few hours later and check which ones we've caught, leave them not set, and then do a PM check. So I talked about leaving the families trapped, or the traps closed at night in the hot part of the day. We tried, for the ones that we caught, we tried to maintain families. So if we caught several out of the same hole, we assumed that was a family. And so we paired them together in transport. And then there was a new sanctuary set aside for them about an hour and a half, 2 hours north and west of there, and with the help of Audubon, Kansas. So here's a couple pictures of me out in the field. In one of those pictures, I have a double, which was always a treat. Siblings would go in there and they're too young. They always want to go with each other. So sometimes you get lucky enough and catch 2 or even 3 at a time, but most times it was just 1. We had to carry all that gear all the way back. And so as soon as you caught one, you had to go all the way back through the field. I mean, it's a big field. So there's a lot of carrying and hiking. And then there was always a person inside the barn. It was not an environmentally controlled barn, but it was at least weather protected. So somebody in there was always keeping inventory of what we caught, maintaining fresh food and water for the ones that we did catch until they were ready for transport. We had a few escapees, so those are always fun to try and catch in a situation like that. Plenty of places to hide and get away from you. And then when you pick one up, they really don't like it, so they bite very hard. I don't know if anybody knew this, but squirrels and critters like that, like these prairie dogs, have some of the best, hardest pound for pound bite in the entire world. Ultimately, we caught about 225 prairie dogs, so well above what we expected or hoped for, and they're thriving very well at their new location. Not all of them, of course. Some didn't quite adapt well, but they're, as far as I know, a couple of years after, they're still doing well. This is a fun one, and I got a few videos for this one. Matt, you're gonna have to give me some. Matt, you'll have to give me some notice on what time it is, because I don't see a clock here, and I want to make sure I'm getting through things quickly enough.
We got about 25 minutes till 1 o'clock.
Oh wow, geez. Okay. Okay, so this is an example of what I talked about earlier about people thinking they're doing an animal a favor by releasing it back into the wild. Underneath this road here, you can see this little black spot is a domestic duck that somebody released there because they didn't want it anymore after the suspicion is after like an Easter gift or something. And this is over by the Elkhorn River in that transition between L Street, or rather Center Street, and Highway 275 over to Wanahoo. But as winter crept in, this animal cannot fly. It's at the mercy of whether or not there's free water to swim. And as winter crept in, the hole kept getting smaller and smaller. And so I was brought out there to try and catch this thing. And in this photo, you can see the only open water left is essentially right where the duck is standing and where he's been sitting. and his body heat is keeping that hole open. So if he leaves that hole, it's going to close. I took my inflatable kayak knowing that the ice was very thin, and as I went, you could see the ice is cracking. But I'm tethered to someone. Someone's got this tethered to themselves, and then also tied off. So like in an instant of me falling in, I can easily be brought in. I think of safety every single time. None of these animals' lives are worth my own risks when it comes to getting hurt. So I do my best to be safe. This thing was taunting me for weeks. I know he didn't know we were trying to help it, but he was so hard to catch. I love this photo here because this is me throwing a net.
Hi, Jules.
Captured the net, or captured the cast of the net, and he's laughing at me because he got away. Eventually, we did catch him though, and I got a few videos to show, but in the sake of time, I want to show these. These are fun. We'll do this on here. Okay, so this one. See, I broke through the ice with my kayak because it was so thin. But I had a lot of people helping me with this. There was about 15 people out at this time trying to make noise to try and keep him from like running away or trying to. Oh, I missed him. I figure one of these times I watch this video, I'll actually catch him. Oops. This is a quick. See, he's laughing at me. Okay, back to the presentation. Eventually, we did catch him. We kind of had to get him. They always make a mistake, you know. The duck thinks he's getting away, but he cornered himself into the bush, and then I was able to chase him up the hill and get him. And a local farmer who has a duck flock kindly accepted the duck, no hesitation, and he's living a great life with a duck farm. This one down in the badger hole. Someone had called. So this first photo here is a picture of a highway out by Norfolk, Nebraska, and someone who drove by saw that a mother badger had been hit on the road, and when they stopped, slowed down to look to be sure, they happened to notice conveniently that there was a baby nearby in the tall grass next to mama. So he called and reported it. We responded quickly. It took 2.5 hours to just get up there, and we dug the hole. So a badger hole is only obviously big enough for its needs, so not big enough for humans. So we had to find the different escape routes. Most badger dens have escape routes, so we had to find all the holes and just start digging. And to our benefit, we had a small person with us, and that really helped us. So we got a trap set. So let me back up a second. When we first got there, they did grab one of the babies. It was still out and visible and catchable, no problem. Got one, but the other one had scurried down the burrow, and that's what we're pursuing now, is this second baby. And I dug the hole out. I was the one who dug the hole out, and I was down crawling on my belly, digging, chipping away kind of like a spelunker would, and making it big enough for Ayat here to drag a cage down and set it. So once she got down the hole, and she was full length, you can see here, she was full length and further. She eventually got further down in there. The burrow branched off left and right. Now, one of the branches was collapsed and we couldn't go that way, but the other one, she was able to set a trap and try and catch it. You can see I tried to get a photo of her down the hole and what it looked like there. We were unsuccessful catching that second one, but the first one we see here in the cage, and then these two photos are of that one that we did catch. And then these other photos, I've said this in the statement here, they're from a different capture, this unrelated to the story, but badgers are just too dang cute. And I never thought in my life that I'd be holding a baby badger. So this is one of my favorite pictures of me with an animal. And this badger ended up with Joel Sartori as well to end up in his photo arc. So it's a very famous badger right now. The other thing, getting back to city lakes, an unfortunate incident happened, and we're gonna watch this video because what happened was an oil tanker, a tanker of some sort down Center Street, roughly at about 168th, 176th, right in that range, slammed on the brakes to avoid hitting another vehicle, and in doing so, it ended up spilling its contents of mineral oil. We're gonna watch this video. Oops. I'm gonna have to do this in Chrome. Come on. So this is at Lakeside Lake, actually behind Baker's.
It's not often you hear.
Let's hope it loads and plays. Dang it. Well, maybe not. Doing a very good job. Well, not my fault, probably. It's just not responding. But
okay. We got about 20 minutes left.
Okay, we'll go through this real quick, I hope. Anyway, so what we did out there, we got the call, mobilized some boats and kayaks and whatnot, and this spill, it was all over. It was 2,000. It was over 2,000 gallons of mineral oil that spilled into Lakeside, and there's hundreds of ducks and geese on the lake at the time, and so that mineral oil instantly coated their feathers. They could barely swim. Most of them couldn't fly. And our job was to catch as many as we could quickly as possible to get them into care. Now, the tanker truck, the company is responsible for it, agreed to pay for the labor. It was going to be hundreds of man hours to repair these animals' feathers back to health to release. We caught dozens of them. I mean, there was hundreds of geese out there. Not many of them, they didn't all get affected the same way, but the ones that got affected the most were easy to catch and then were rehabilitated. And captured. Okay. Anyway, back to that story for a second before moving on to cage building. That took several weeks of going out there almost every day to try and catch some because it was just a lot of effort to try and catch them. And then the company did pay $10,000 just as a donation to Nebraska Wildlife Rehab to help with the man hours required to fix their ducks, or to fix the animals' feathers and clean them up. It was lots of washing, drying, rehabbing, and the state health department or whatever environmental company did, they brought out those devices that help soak up the oil like that, and they skimmed it across the surface. And it didn't take long to get most of it, but it took a long time to get it all. That took a large part of last summer. Or maybe it was last summer. Anyway, for those who don't want to help with animals but are handy, I've helped with cage building, and that's a rewarding thing too, because these animals need places to live while they're in rehab and transitioning from nurseries out to wilding cages. We call these wilding cages because we put them in the woods, so that animals that are almost ready to be released can start getting used to the sights and sounds and smells of outside before they actually get released. And so cage building has been a big part of my time with wildlife rehab. These are all designed by me, except for this one. These here are designed by a gentleman named Chet. Very, very wonderful person. He's not working with us anymore, but he had so many great designs and hours built into each of these. He said each of these cages took him over 80 hours. Was it 180 hours? Whatever, it was a lot of hours to build. We took some kennels off of Tully's. When Tully's kennels shut down, we hauled off their old kennels and turned them into a raccoon paradise, which has worked very well for many years, but they've run their time and they're going to be taken down. They're just falling apart now. Coming up very soon is a thing called Bats Over Omaha, which is a public event for bats that have been kept in captivity for the winter and spring, and they get released in the spring. So hold on. What happens is people call in and say they got a bat in their attic, or they found a bat somewhere. They don't want them in their house. Well, if that happens in the summer, no problem. You just take them out and you release the bat. But if it happens in December, and it's cold out, you can't release them because A, they're hibernating, and B, when you wake them up from a hibernation, their metabolism starts working so quickly that they're at risk for losing weight and perishing just from undernourishment, because in the winter there's no bugs to eat. So trying to release an animal in the winter will surely kill it. It will not survive. Not only is it too cold out, but there's also nothing for it to eat, and it needs to eat. So the Bats Over Omaha event has happened for, I think, 12 or 10 or 12 straight years, except for during the COVID times. Well, we still had it. We just didn't do it as a public event. It used to be held at the Joslin Art Museum, and they'd hold it about 1,500, 2,000 people, something like that, would come out and watch us release these bats. I'm going to see if this YouTube video will work. This will give a better idea of what the event actually
We went
is.
to Omaha's Joslin Art Museum, where things got a little batty tonight. It was the culmination of months worth of work for the Nebraska Wildlife Rehab as they released rehabilitated bats back out into the wild. The 245 animals were all taken in during the winter. Some had been injured, others woke up early from hibernation. Nebraska Wildlife Rehab also took the opportunity to teach families about the benefit of bats to the ecosystem.
Okay, so that is coming up again very soon. We're going to make a decision this week on when it's going to be this year, which it could be as early as Sunday or Monday, but it all depends on the weather. It can't be windy, and it has to be well above routine freezing overnight. And this year it's going to be at the Joslin Castle instead of the Joslin Museum. These are just some examples of bats, pictures that I've had in my own house. So this is a cluster of bats. There's probably about actually 10 or 15 of them in that pile. And we teach them, because there's no insects out at the time, we have to teach them how to eat mealworms out of a dish. And that's tricky, but it can be done. It works very, very well. We feed the mealworms a diet that would mimic what the bats eat in the wild when they eat their real insects. And then we teach them that the mealworms are delicious and something to crave, and they eventually do devour them. Here's a little publicity I've gotten from my bats releases. I've been fortunate enough to be a kind of center stage at a few of these and gotten some professional photography. I didn't know it at the time. I just found out. I was on a magazine one day. Somebody said, "Hey, Scott, I saw you in a magazine." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then this is video footage. This is a screenshot from a video footage that the video itself was shot by Alex Wiles. He's one of our media directors for photography and video, but Joel Sartori leveraged that footage in one of his own videos. And my favorite rescues by far are pelican rescues. They're always fun. They're always unique. They're always potentially dangerous. They're always a risk for getting wet. A lot of times they include boats, kayaks, airboats. And I can't, I just love pelican rescues. This is this is my very first one, and lucky enough, that very first one ended up in a magazine issue, an airboat magazine. KETV News was called out to videotape us. We rode this airboat, jumped off the boat, captured the animal, and the rest is history. Now, how are we doing? Can we get a pulse of the team here that's listening, how much time they want to bother with this? Because I do have quite a bit left. I did not time this presentation, but if anybody's willing.
We got about 10 minutes left.
Yeah. 10
I'll
minutes.
go back to videos if we want to, but this is a second video, or a second rescue, where called out for a pelican that couldn't fly. We chased it around with a boat. I was able to get it. The people that were helping did not want to get on the dock, though, until I removed the snake first, the bull snake there. That's kind of fun. I was like, Really, guys? It's just a snake. This one was fun. This is over by Mead. I think it was by Mead. It might have been by Ashland. But somebody called about this pelican that wasn't flying away and was just swimming up and down this drainage ditch, this ditch next to the crops. And I thought, well, this will be an easy one. A, it cannot fly, and B, the body of water it's utilizing is very tiny. I can go just get it, right? No problem. Took my throw net, got it on top of the bird. Then I went to walk out to the water to get it. I knew I was going to get a little wet, so I knew just go for it, right? As soon as I took even partial step, I went from barely having my feet wet to being past hip depth in water. I took one step into that thing and it was past my hips. I kind of had a moment of panic, but I realized, oh, well, too late. I'm already wet. I know how to swim. I am safe. The bird is secured in the net. I better go get him. So I went all the way in and it got up to my chest in depth. Like that ditch is up to my chest in water. I could have had no idea. I mean, that just gives you the idea of the level of safety you always have to be concerned about when you go do these things. Here's another one where Ayette and I went back and forth across this lake for probably 2 hours. And then again, like to one of my points earlier, if they can't fly, they can swim pretty well. They can evade you, but only for so long. Eventually they get tired or they make a mistake, or especially if you got two people, you can corner them just right. And that's what happened here. He went from a combination of being too tired to we just had just the right approach to him from the left and from his right and kind of cornered him, closed in on him and captured him. Here's another airboat one. Adam's another person that I rely on heavily for these field rescues. We went on an airboat on the Platte River. And when we finally caught him, he smelled so bad that Ayette and I took him back to my house and a little bit of a bath in clean water. And my dog and the pelican had a couple interactions with each other just to let each other know who's the boss. This is one that I caught this past week. This spring has been notorious for pelicans. It was I've had about 5 pelican rescues in the last 2 weeks. This one was out at Lake Cunningham, and nobody could tell what was wrong with it at first to tell me what to expect. But when I got there, I knew immediately what was wrong. This animal had gotten caught up in a fishing hook. So up here in the upper left is the Rapala lure that was caught on. So it must have got it caught on its foot first, and then it used its bill to try and get it off. And in doing so, it got its bill caught on the front hooks. And so we had to do a lot of manipulation with those hooks to snip off the barbs and then pull through and, prevent injury. And the guy, he's doing fine now. But that was a painful one, I think, for him. Here's another one, couldn't fly, wasn't leaving. And then the unique thing.
Can you hear me, Scott? I lost you here.
I can hear you, Matt.
Okay. Can you hear Scott at all?
No, I can't.
No. I can't hear him either. He's frozen. Well, if he can hear us, he can leave the Zoom and come back and we'll finish up. We got a couple minutes. We're gonna pause this.
History, but that last one I was. Oh, you're recording again. Good job.
Yeah.
That last one I was telling you about, I don't know how much you heard, but eventually I was pulling on this fishing line, and it wasn't a stick that he was pulling behind it. It was a stick, but that stick was. I pulled up an entire fishing rod, a brand spanking new fishing rod, a catfish rig.
Hey,
So
Scott, you need to share again.
Oh yeah, sorry. Oh, dang, I'm doing bad at this today. Screen share. Sorry, I'm not going to get to all this stuff
Got
at
it.
all. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna keep the slideshow, and I'm not gonna. Anyway, so I hauled up the entire fishing rod. So the rod had gotten caught on a branch underneath the water, and that's why the bird couldn't go anywhere. This one, foxes are my second favorite rescue. This fox outfoxed me. I thought I had him cornered. He went under a pine tree, And my choice was go around the pine tree and lose sight of it and risk losing the potential capture, or go under the tree, which had plenty of room for me to go under. And I took a dive under the tree because I didn't want to lose sight of him. And I cleared underneath the tree, except for there was one little branch with a nub hanging down, and it sliced the top of my head. I needed staples. We did not capture this fox, but it was a fun story nonetheless. It's actually a long story. I don't have time for that. But another one we had shouldn't have even needed rescuing, because it actually was in a car in a kennel and on its way to rehab. Person took it out of the car, the kennel fell apart, and the fox escaped and went down a drainage thing. And we did our best to catch it. We eventually got it. It made a mistake. Usually foxes think they're evading you, but if you keep them in your sights, eventually they think they're hiding, but they're actually putting themselves at danger and being cornered and getting caught. That guy had terrible mange, a broken femur, and is doing very well now. So like injuries that seem hopeless actually get cured with us. They do a very good job of helping in most cases. This one, sometimes I get run into confrontations with people where they want to know, they think I'm the bad guy because I'm in the public view. I'm chasing an animal, and they think I'm a poacher, for example, or think I'm a obnoxious person trying to commit bad things to the animals that they love about. So they want to know what my credentials are. They tell me this is private property. I've had the cops called on me. I've had Game and Fish called on me. I've had property owners called on me. They always want to know, what are we doing to that poor animal? You're probably just going to kill it. Get out of here. I don't want it to come back. We run into confrontations from time to time, and so we have to learn how to deal with those. This animal was missing the top half of its beak, and the people confronting me about it did not believe me that there was a goose out there with a broken beak. They said, they know all these animals out here. There's nothing out here with a broken beak. And I said, yes, there is, dude. Just wait. They called the cops. They called Game, Fish, and Parks, and they said, just wait till they get here. You'll see. You're going to be under arrest. And I said, well, you can call who you want, but once they get here, I guarantee you they're actually going to help me. And that's what they did. Matt put this in the link in the bio. All these stories and more in 10 years of service has given me some reputation, I guess you could say. And I was contacted by Omaha Magazine to do an interview about my experiences. And of course, we won't read it here, but Matt had a link to it in this invitation, and it's just a nice interview to do and sharing stories. They embellished, the person who wrote this embellished a few things, like right here it says, but she's never seen an animal quite like Scott Hansen. I appreciate that, I guess, but it's humbling and kind of embarrassing when they write exaggerations like that. And I can't close out a meeting or have a meeting without some sort of mention of what you can do to volunteer to help. So we can have, there's a process for for volunteering. I've left a link here. They're going to have new volunteer orientations in September and October. They don't have trainings in the summer because it's so ridiculously busy, but you can learn how to help with the mammals, the birds, the hotline, and the wildlife intake, helping with diet, and then transporters, cage building, enrichment, all the things that I've talked about. There is training for it, but you have to go through the process. And one of the notations they make sure they try and stress is that, yes, you're volunteering, going through training to help with the mammal nursery, for example, but you will spend a lot of time helping with laundry, dishes, cage cleaning, and things like that, because they can't do their job if everything's clean, or everything they need to do their job is dirty. So they have to do it. Everybody has to do it together. Educational opportunities. I won't spend too much time on this, but there are in-house classes that are offered usually monthly. The next one's coming up called Supporting Wildlife in Your Backyard on May 9th at 6 p.m. That's at the Wildlife Center, which is at 96th and L Street. We didn't talk about that, but I think I mentioned it somewhere, or it's on one of the slides. But most of the training caters to students of some sort, whether it's a high school science academy or people in college getting their bachelor's degree, needing an internship. And this year, for the first time, they're offering veterinary internships. How can you help? All kinds of things. There's basically the best place to help is either choose something you want to volunteer with, or if you're someone who's rather just give money or donate portions of purchases. So there's ways to go through the Amazon wish list. And sometimes you can just choose Nebraska Wildlife Rehab as your nonprofit of choice, your charity of choice, and sometimes your purchases through Amazon Smile and tag just the purchases alone. If you scan them, a percentage goes to Nebraska Wildlife Rehab. But here's some other ways, and the link that you can find those. And then lastly, I threw in a couple of slides with stories and stuff, but obviously we don't have time for all the stories. But I always have someone with me. I don't know if you guys caught on or if it's clear or not, but I always have Ayat with me. She is my girlfriend. She's the first voice you'll hear when you call the place. She's the front desk person. She's got a plethora of knowledge. And she, along with Adam, are really the only two people I trust to go out with me rescuing animals, because they know exactly the language I need from them as far as the body language approach to animals and how to respond to the different reactions we get from animals. But she and I make a good team, not just with wildlife, but also in life. And then I want to have a thank you slide showing in this middle picture, this little gosling here is being introduced as an adoption to this family. Another one of my grandkids out here always loves coming with me. He doesn't really help that much. He just gets to carry the net and feel proud, you know. But we also miss out on a lot of stuff if we don't have a camera with. So it's nice to have someone with that can hold the camera and capture these moments. So I'm really sorry we didn't get to the things I really wanted to show you, but again, I did not time this presentation. So
that's okay. It was great.
I have tons of videos, tons of pictures, things I wanted to show, but if I'm going to quit sharing and just look at you guys face to face now.
Well, I've got one other question that came in on the chat real quick. Somebody was asking about their near Page, Nebraska. Charlene was asking that there's a Great Dane dog that got loose. The female returned home, but the male has been spotted and is scared and won't let anyone near. It's happened about a week ago. And so they want to know who or where they should contact.
Where's Page, Nebraska at? My best guess is the first contact should be the Nebraska Humane Society in Omaha. Yeah. And I don't doubt one bit that they have some sort of animal by O'Neill. Okay. Yeah, there's animal control officers within Omaha. Now I don't know which ones of them go with outreach to the outer parts of the state, because there's so many within Omaha and Lincoln, for example. But
my guess is they're the Humane Society. I have to double check. Nebraska Humane Society, possibly around Grand Island. Would be probably the closest to O'Neill. But
yeah.
But anyways, yeah.
If anybody wants to stay on, I don't know how long folks want to stay on or see any of these videos that I skipped over, but that's the nuts and bolts of my life with the wildlife rehab. There's weeks that go by, or even months sometimes, where I don't get any calls. And then, like I said, the past month roughly, I've had a call almost every single day with something. And then it's usually me that gets called because they love my approach. They trust me. They know I'm safe. They know I'm good for the animals. Also, I'm responsive. I'm available most of the time. So these stories kind of go through me right now.
Oh, awesome. But
I would take any questions. Obviously, it's already 1 o'clock. They're past 1, but you know.
If anybody has any questions, they can either unmute themselves or put it in the chat.
Well, with silence, I will assume everybody appreciated what they're seeing, that they don't have time for more, although it'd be great if I could. So without anything else, I appreciate the opportunity, Matt. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks, Scott.
And if anybody wants to volunteer, I don't know if Matt's sharing